Johnston City Council meeting of Cindy, roll call, please.
Councilmember Cope,
Here.
Evans,
Here.
Martin,
Here.
Ready,
Here.
Burkhart.
Here.
I want to welcome everyone that is in the audience this evening. If you're here for an item that is on the agenda, we would ask for you to wait for that item to come up and address the council at that time. If you're here for an item that is not on the agenda, there will be an opportunity under public communications if you'd like to address the council. The next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. And when we have young people in the audience, we like to invite them forward and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So will the young people in the audience do the honors of coming forward and leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance? You want to come forward? No? No brave souls? Why don't you lead us anyway? One of you.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is the agenda approval. Do we have any changes to the agenda, Mike?
We do not, Mayor. Thank you.
Council, any changes to the agenda? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Evans.
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Ready. Yes. Burkhart,
Yes.
Cope.
Yes.
Motion passed. Moving on to public communications. We have several public communications this evening. The first is a recognition of Mary Jane Paez for receiving the Outstanding Volunteer Award for the Iowa Urban Tree Council. And I'll ask Carrie to come forward. Carrie, and talk to us a little bit about that.
I've asked for about 5 minutes more than just this recognition. I wanted to tell you a little bit more about Dewey Park and what was going on back 40 years ago. In 1981, I was asked by a city council member, Mert Hansen, if I would join the park board. And I said I would. My first meeting was in Eiffel. It was pure bedlam. The neighbors from all around Dewey Park were up in arms. The city had come in and bulldozed every bit of green life that was there. And they also had come up with a plan that looked more like a mini Olympic village. It had everything on there. And it was just something that we could never possibly afford. The chairman was overbearing and rude and nasty to all these neighbors. And the meeting would last until 11:30 with all the going on.
Not like any of our staff today.
Pardon?
Overbearing, rude, and we have no staff like that today.
No. As I go on, I'll tell you, none of this would happen in today's city council or in the city. I interacted with the neighbors and told them that we would get this straightened around. A few meetings later, the notice came up that they were going to talk about landscaping. And this, I have a hard time talking about this man. The chairman said he's got this all covered. He says he's going to order 100 green ash. He's going to get them planted for $125 a piece. They're $25,000 done. I said, that's ridiculous. And he said, if you think you're so good about it, you take it, you do it. I said, I will. So the next few days, I went around to the 3 nurseries. There was Miller, PBS, and Hurd at the time. And I looked over the materials and all the things that I wanted to see there. I wanted to see evergreens and hardwood trees and blossoming shrubs and things that would attract birds and be enjoyable by everybody and provide shade. So I made a to-scale landscape plan, and that's 9.8 acres of land there. And then I made a list of all the plant material that I wanted to see that I allocated. And then I went around to the nurseries and said, I want you to bid on these, and it won't be on the entire project. It will be on the plant material. And come up with the best price you can, and you will get the deal. They worked really hard. I think that they gave us a better deal because it was for the city. But on May 8th of 1982, we had a planting day. The city Public Works had come and done all the augering and holes for all the plant material. And then we had 16 people show up, 2 city council members, 2 staff members. So it was Bob Flaws from Public Works and Terry Peterson, who was the city clerk. And the rest of them were from the neighborhood. I was there representing the park board. Not a single park board member came. But all of the things were put next to the flag that said the right name on it, and we got done in a few hours. They all pitched in and did the work. And city, this was on a Saturday, but Bob Flaws had made sure that we had a truck with water, and so the neighbors made sure that everything got watered in. 40 years later, I am so gratified to hear people enjoying Dewey Park. Things have come and things have gone there, but we've had neighbors have planted things there that wasn't on the original plan, but they're beautiful, and I'm so pleased with that. This last, I got this award. It's for 2004 Outstanding Volunteer. Dewey Park was just a part of this, and I've always felt that this was a past accomplishment because I was doing a lot of other tree things. I started the Tree City USA for Johnston, and it's the 30th year of our being a tree city. I see also on the agenda is the reward of grant money from Mid-American Energy. Back when I was getting the grants, it was $7,000 a year. I don't know what they're giving out these days, but that inspired me to plant more trees. I'm also very grateful to Carrie Allen from the Parks Department. When we'd be working together on things for the Simpson House or the barn or whatever, she'd ask questions. And I thought she was terribly interested in history. And so I answered her questions and showed her more things to get involved with. And I was blown out of the water to receive this award, but I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Gary, do you want to come forward? Why don't you talk about the award and how Mary Jane was nominated?
So each year, the Iowa Urban Tree Council has, I think, 4 categories that they offer, like a youth group, an organization, volunteers, and I think there's one more. But anyway, there's, I think, 5 or 6 questions that you have to fill out in the nominating. And Mary Jane's correct. I kept asking a lot of questions, seemed very interested, and I'm sure you thought, man, she's weird. But anyway, she wrote her own nomination, basically. It was very easy to do that for her. And again, we wouldn't be where we're at today if it wasn't for the forethought and foresight of Mary Jane saying, no, I don't want all these ash trees. And so we were able to create Dewey Park into our city arboretum because of that. So a lot of where we are at today with the Tree City USA, the Growth Award, and the arboretum is due to Mary Jane's commitment. And also the farmers market then was started to help create funds for the matching for grants. So there's a lot of things in our community that pivot around very inspirational, monumental people. And our trees in our town is one of them that Mary Jane's very responsible for.
Well, Mary Jane, we are so proud of you. And thank you so much for planting the seed for us to continue to be a community that really does appreciate our trees and looks for opportunities to plant trees and to make us a greener, more tree community. I think we need to have a picture to memorialize this recognition this evening. And again, it's the Outstanding Volunteer Award for the Iowa Urban Tree, from the Iowa Urban Tree Council. So we want to make sure that we have I know that I've asked you for pictures of Dewey Park back at its inception, and we can't find any, but we're going to make sure that we have a picture of this evening. So let's, council, let's go down and take a picture with Mary Jane and with Carrie. Well, again, Mary Jane, congratulations. We are still under public communications, and the next recognition is of Captain Tristan Johnson and Lieutenant Chris Ford for their national accomplishments. And I think Chief Clark is going to give us a little background on this.
Mayor and council, the fire district has many talented and successful members, but the public does not always get to see what they do behind the scenes. The public usually only sees the service the fire district members deliver when they show up at a home or a place of business or on an accident scene. There are a lot of dedicated hours of education and instruction that go into forming our great leaders. Johnston Grimes Metropolitan Fire District is pleased to announce that Captain Tristan Johnston has completed the Managing Officer Program at the National Fire Academy in Emmitsburg, Maryland. This is a prestigious honor given the competitive process for acceptance into the program, which consists of 5 prerequisite courses followed by 4 in-person courses at the National Fire Academy campus in Emmitsburg, Maryland. The coursework culminates in a community-based capstone project. Captain Johnson is a lifelong learner and serves as an instructor for the Iowa Fire Service Training Bureau and is also responsible for all of JGMFD training. These duties are in addition to his assignment managing the personnel assigned to A shift. The skills acquired by the Managing Officer Program will benefit him in his current position and in his aspirations to become a chief officer one day. I know the City Council and our citizens believe we have good leaders in the department, but it's a pleasure to present them to the City Council for recognition when they achieve these national certifications and designations, proving their worthiness for the positions they hold. Captain Johnson? So it is my pleasure to present you with your National Fire Academy Managing Officer Program. How do you want to do it? Do you think that'll good? We'll bring you back up. All right, next, Lieutenant Chris Ford has been redesignated as a fire officer by the Center for Public Excellence Commission on Professional Credentialing. Chris achieved his fire officer designation 3 years ago and recently renewed his credentials. This is not an easy process. It involves a rigorous application and review by members of the commission. It's a selective process and not everyone meets the high standards to become credentialed. Pursuing the fire officer designation signifies a commitment to leadership and operational skills in firefighting. Fire officers are a pivotal link between staff officers and crews, not only on the fire ground, but also in the stations. They are the boots on the ground leaders who assess risk and mitigate emergencies. They must possess excellent operational skills and pass those on through training and mentoring. They need leadership skills to transform their crew members into effective teams that can handle any situation. They shape the future leaders who will one day take their place when they either move up to a higher rank in position or when they retire. It's often said they are the backbone of the fire department. It's my pleasure to present to City Council and citizens of Johnston and Grimes, Chris Ford, Designated Fire Officer. Do we have the council come down and get pictures with them?
Thank you for your dedication. Captain, thank you very much.
Anyone just make two comments? So before you take off with your family, I'm sure you promised them dinner this evening, right? That's not really a lot. Well, maybe not. Well, I just want to say, on behalf of the city council, congratulations. I mean, both of the recognitions that you got tonight are really wonderful achievements. But it shows how, to all of us, it just shows how dedicated and committed you are to doing your jobs and doing your jobs well. As someone who has been on the other end of the training that these gentlemen have received, I can tell you, they do an amazing job. When you are in their hands, you know that you are well taken care of. So again, I just want to say we are proud of you. We're proud of the entire fire department here, fire district here in Johnston and Grimes. And we just couldn't be more excited about the accomplishments that you received. And I say that to all of you. Thank you so much for what you do for us. We know that every day that you're here on the job, we're safer because of it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
You bet. Keep losing our crowd. That's all right. It's fun to have people here for the really good stuff. The next item under public communications is Trees Please. It's a grant from Mid-American.
Mayor, Council, thanks for having me here tonight. Kelly Swenson with Mid-American Energy, and I represent the company on tonight, but I'm a resident of Johnston as well, and a pleasure to be here. And would like to thank you for being a great community partner for a lot of years as far as our Trees Please program go. And as was mentioned, we used to have higher grant amounts, but we actually fund a lot more communities now. But this year, we're presenting $5,000 to the city to plant trees in public spaces. And I don't think I need to tell you how important the value of all of them are. But number one, obviously in our mind for Mid-American, is to save energy, right? And Shade does that. So I'm here to give you a check for $5,000. Thank you for being a great community partner. And is there any questions?
Council have any questions for Kelly? Well, thank you, Kelly. Thank you. Thank you for always coming to our city council meetings with the check. Thanks to Mid-American Energy for their donation for such a wonderful cause. I don't know, I think I asked you this last year. How many years have we?
I think it was a few years ago you asked me this, but
Okay.
I did look it up then, and I don't remember it now. I think
But it's been a lot of years.
I think it's close to 20 years though.
Yeah, yeah.
So-
So there are a lot of trees planted in this
Are a
community
number of trees,
because
so-
of this wonderful donation from
Yes,
Mid-American Energy.
absolutely.
So please communicate back to, all of the folks that you report to that we really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Anyway, we need to have a picture of this, and Carrie and Mary Jane, you want to come up for this as well? Kelly knows where to hand the check.
It's not your check, Mayor.
Oh, there we go.
You become the finance director of the city? That'd be nice. I don't think you want that. I'll stick with plan.
Yeah.
Or a little outside. Okay, the next item is the proclamation for Arbor Day, April 26, 2024. And I'm not going to read the proclamation tonight because we have an official day on which we're going to do that. And Carrie, can you talk to us a little bit about that?
April 26th, we are going to do an activity at 1 o'clock. We are going to plant the official Arbor Day tree, which part of the Tree City USA application is that number one, we have to have a proclamation, and number two, we have to celebrate Arbor Day in some form. So to begin our trash bash celebration for that day, we are going to plant our Arbor Day tree, and then we've got around 50 volunteers signed up to come and help pick up trash, mulch trees, and do some cleaning up of our landscape and beds around Johnston. We worked with City of Des Moines this year. With Nate's absence, we jumped on with them and were able to use their website as a place for people to go and sign up and register for our event. So I'm hoping to continue that relationship. As long as I've been here, I don't remember having 50 people sign up. John Deere Financial is one of the groups that's coming, and Bolton and Mink as well. So the other day that we'll probably read the proclamation is we're going to do like we did last year and have a public tree planting on May 18th at 9 o'clock at Lou Clarkson. We're going to replant the trees that are in the parking lot there. And we're going to invite the same school kids that were here last year. And we will probably read the proclamation at that time with the kids. So.
Perfect, perfect. Well, thank you, Carrie. Thank you for all you do to help plant trees in the community. I'm going to leave the rest of you in suspense as to what's in this proclamation. So you're going to have to turn out to one of those events to find out what it actually says. So again, thank you, Carrie. It's a wonderful event and a great day here in Johnston. The last scheduled item under public communications is a Kites on the Green Day proclamation. And I won't read it word for word, but I do just want to point out a couple of things that are included in the proclamation that I want to make sure everybody is aware of. Kites on the Green this year is the first Saturday in May, just like it has been for the past 11 years. This year, that date is May 4th, 2024. Again, we have all kinds of activities at it, even more this year than ever before. We have giant show kites, kite fighting, free kite building, bull racing, a live band, inflatable obstacle courses, sway pole performances. And we'll have to find out what that's all about. Magic show, balloon animals, candy drop, the Johnston Grimes Fire Department will be there, as well as the Johnston Police Department, Iowa National Guard, food trucks, sidewalk chalk, and so much more. So you can see this is a full day of family, fun, free activities. It starts at 10 o'clock and it goes till 5 o'clock at the Johnston Commons, which is the green space around the Johnston Library. And I do want to mention real quickly all of the sponsors, because obviously we couldn't put on an event like this with all of these activities without the support of our sponsors. So we have Viridian Credit Union, Snyder Associates, Polk County Board of Supervisors, Charter Bank, Corteva Agri-Science, Delta Dental of Iowa, Knapp Properties, RDG Planning and Design, Quickstar, and Fairway. All of those have contributed both in terms of funding as well as other items that we need to carry out the event. So it's always, I think we've only had rain, significant rain, during one of our previous 10 events. I'm pretty optimistic it's going to be a really nice day. So I would encourage you all to turn out, bring your family and your friends. It truly is a wonderful day just to spend time with other people in Johnston and to fly kites. And everybody loves to fly kites. So please come on out for Kites on the Green, May 4th from 10 o'clock to 5 o'clock. It's Johnston Library. That is our last scheduled public communications this evening. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda? Seeing none, we will move on to public hearings. We have 3 public hearings this evening. The first is to conduct a public hearing for the 2024-2025 budget and consider resolution number 24-109, adopting the budget for fiscal year 2024-2025 and authorizing tax levies on all taxable properties within the city of Johnston. Motion to grant the police department authority to increase its authorized staffing of sworn personnel to 37 officers effective with the 2024 budget. Resolution number 24-110, confirming and establishing public purpose for economic development, arts, and culture. And resolution number 24-111, approving transfers for the 2024-2025 fiscal year. And we'll open this public hearing at 7:28. Mike?
Thank you, Mayor and Council and residents and taxpayers of Johnston. This is the public hearing on the fiscal year 2025 budget. Just kind of what we'll talk about tonight, and this is a little bit different than our last public hearing that we had 2 weeks ago on kind of the property tax statement and the total dollars we're levying. But we'll go through some background, we'll talk about some legislative changes. Frankly, inflation, we'll kind of go through some of those effects. Some efficiency efforts that we've been undertaking over the last several years. I will talk deep dive then into the fiscal year 2025 budget, and then we'll have time for questions. Everything that we do for the actual budget itself, we pin back to both our vision statements and our mission statements. And just as a reminder for the residents and taxpayers and the council as a whole, our vision statement for 2039 is that Johnston 2039 is a safe community and attractive community with a small town feeling. Johnston 2039 has great neighborhoods, outstanding quality of life amenities for all to enjoy, thriving community destinations, and strong local economy. In Johnston 2039, our residents and businesses take pride in Johnston, and Johnston 2039, a special place to thrive every day. Our mission statement is Johnston City Government mission is to provide exceptional city services and to plan and invest in our community's future in a fiscally responsible and sound manner through a high-performing city team that provides personalized customer service and engages our community. And our budget itself represents, really is, it's in my mind, the most important document we approve, that the council approves annually. And it really does set up the policy and gives your staff direction on how to execute the policy in the direction that you want to go on an annual basis. It reflects our vision and needs for the community, and it provides that roadmap over the next 12 months. So everything that we do and the budget that we've laid out really does tie back to the kind of these ideals that we feel is important as the services we provide the community. Some background that I think is important. First, when residents and property taxpayers receive their property tax statements, it is important to know that the city of Johnston is just a portion of that bill itself. We represent 31% of the property tax bill. There's a number of entities, including the school district, Polk County, Broadlawns Hospital, DART, DMAC, and the county assessor that make up the entirety of that property tax bill. And I think one thing that's keep in mind is to understand, we know that property values went up substantially, but there are a lot of changes that has occurred that really limits that. First of all, with the rollback in Johnston, we're limited to 49% increase with the residential. And then on top of that, with House File 718, that's further reduced down to 2.89%. So when you think about overall, over the last decade, we've grown by 32%. That equates to 3.2% annually growth. What we're actually seeing in value growth in the community actually falls below our natural population growth, and additionally, those inflationary impacts are even on top of the population growth that happens. So in Johnston, we know the average home value increased from $291,650 for the current fiscal year 2024, and that's going to increase for fiscal year 2025 to $351,500. That's a 20.52% increase. So with that, knowing that information with the rollbacks and how those apply, and with the levy increase that was published, the average homeowner will see an increase of 7.86% or $136.27 on their property tax bill. This is kind of our historic levy rates here in Johnston, and you'll see in proposed and what we published proposed was $11.4579. And historically, you can go back to fiscal year 20, fiscal year 19, and fiscal year 17. Those were actually higher levy rates than what is currently proposed and published for fiscal year 2025 that's upcoming. And then this is the Metro city-only levy rate comparison. And you can see Johnston, we actually kind of fall in the middle of the Metro. And this is representation of Polk and Dallas County cities with a population greater than 4,000 in population. So one question that is always asked is how did those dollars distribute? And so when we look at all of the dollars we get, be it property taxes or utility bills, grant funding that we may receive, state aids that we receive, local option sales tax, this is how all those dollars kind of lay out. Our highest expenditure areas actually are enterprise funds, which is our water, sanitary sewer, storm sewer, our debt service, which is kind of made up of areas like major buildings, streets, major equipment, and that major equipment may be, because you would think streets and buildings, that's really public works in a lot of cases, but then buildings, we have the public safety building that we're still paying debt off. You also have the fire ladder truck that we're planning to purchase. That alone is $2 million. So that will create debt, and that becomes an area. The third largest area is our public safety with all of our expenditures at 16%. So you can see how those lay out. Now, when you go and look at property taxes itself, the two areas that really will fall off will be enterprise and our capital project. Capital projects, most of those dollars are debt that we'll be issuing, and so we'll expend those this year, and then in future years that will become a debt service. So when we look at property taxes, how that lays out, our largest area goes to public safety, debt service being second, and then our cultural recreational third. Areas like public works, a lot of people will say, well, why did that fall? Why is that only 3%? Well, they have a lot of other funding, including road use tax that comes from the state through the gas tax. So there's other funding, other dollars that then flow in there. A common question that a lot of people ask is, if the city is seeing value increases and additional construction, why is the levy rate increasing? And we know in 2023, for example, we've seen $17 million of new construction. And so the question is, again, why are we seeing a levy increase? Well, that new value doesn't become assessed until January 1st after construction's completed. And then with the property tax process, it actually takes a full 18 months before it becomes a taxable value. So in reality, once a permit's issued, it can take anywhere from 24 to 36 months before that value is taxable value that we actually would levy property taxes against. Some important legislative changes, and this is more really for the residents and taxpayers to understand. The city has seen a number of changes over the last number of years from legislative changes. And every time there's a legislative change, that really is a tax shift that occurs, and it really shifts the burden from one set of property taxpayers to others. So, for example, commercial property tax backfill. This was a reduction that occurred a number of years ago. And the state said, we're going to backfill that. We're going to make cities whole. Well, they chose 3 years ago to start phasing that out. Depending on your growth, you'd either phase out in 5 or 8 years. Johnston's a 5-year phase out. And so in fiscal year 2022, we received $500,000 in commercial property tax backfill. That equated to 24 cents on our levy rate. For fiscal year 2024, our current one will receive $302,000. In fiscal year 2025, $201,000. Next, the following fiscal year in 2026, it'll be $100,000, and then 27 will actually be eliminated. So that has an impact. And again, that shifted tax burden from commercial property taxpayers to residential property taxpayers. We have the multi-residential rollback. We rolled back multifamily residential from commercial rates to residential rates. That resulted in a loss of $12.1 million in taxable value, or $128,000 in actual property tax revenue, or equivalent to 7 cents on the levy rate. And again, that then shifted the burden from those multi-residential properties to residential and commercial property taxpayers. We have the business property tax credit reimbursement that was started 2 years ago now. The city should be receiving $176,000, or 10 cents on our levy rate. We did receive word recently that for fiscal year 2025, the city will only receive 71% of that credit. And so we will only receive $125,000, losing $51,000, which is an equivalent of 3 cents on the levy rate. There was expansions to credits and exemptions for military and seniors. In fiscal year 2024, that was $1 million. For 25, it's going to be $7.4 million. And because the senior credit is going to be increasing again in fiscal year 2026, we expect at least another $6 million of additional credit or properties that will be exempted off. So just on the $7.6 million and on the levy rate, that's $85,000, or equivalent of 7 cents on the levy rate. So again, all these accumulate up to a loss over the last 4 years of $769,000, or 38 cents on the levy rate. So again, a lot of times these are all, taxpayers like these credits, but it really does simply shift that burden from one set of taxpayers to another set of taxpayers. We also have House File 718 that occurred this last legislative year through the ratcheting efforts. And so in fiscal year 2024, what is called our adjusted city general fund levy, which is a new levy term. They consolidated a number of cities' levies. That went from 837 for fiscal year 25. That'll go down to 820. And then PFM has provided projections that's our financial advisor here at the city. In fiscal year 26, that'll go to 804. Fiscal year 27 actually will go back up to 810. And in fiscal year 28 is actually projected right now to go to 786. If the legislation isn't changed in fiscal year 2029 and beyond, that will actually be adjusted up to 810 and will then continue to be at the 810 level. So again, it provides a loss of flexibility, but also provides a lot of uncertainty of how we provide those services that residents and taxpayers need. Everything costs more. We know homeowners and residents have seen inflation impact them. We've certainly seen that here at the city. For example, an ambulance in 2010 was $166,000. We are currently looking to purchase one this year, and it's going to be excess of $500,000. Patrol cars in 2011 was $25,866. In 2022 was $68,000. Heavy duty trucks in 2011, these are our plow trucks that we clear snow with, was $140,000. In 2021, it's $228,000. So, steel, concrete, labor, those inflation indexes have far exceeded kind of the consumer price index. And again, it just puts pressure on the city of how we provide the services and how we pay for those services. In fiscal year 2025, there's also a number of areas that we're seeing increases in. Polk County radio dispatch system. Polk County is now requiring us to pay into the dispatching. That was a free service that the city of Johnston enjoyed in the past. And that'll be $125,000 for next fiscal year. And they've put us on warning that they expect that will increase gradually over time. Our general liability tort insurance went up $89,000. We've all seen that as homeowners. Interesting enough, something I just heard this morning, the state of Iowa, we rank population-wide 31st for natural disaster, the cost of natural disasters. We actually ranked 7th in the country. And so you think about those natural disasters, the ratio that's occurred here in 2021, those had tremendous impacts. And again, we're seeing it in the insurance side of it. Additionally, while we expected a higher increase in our tort liability, we were warned earlier in the year. We've seen a really low increase, and actually for a lot of cities, what I'm hearing, we are way below average for an increase. The reality is one of the areas that we've seen a big increase in is our deductibility, and we'll talk more about it here later in the presentation. But our deductible for wind and hail is now it is $25,000. Prior to April 1st was $25,000 per premise. It's now going to 1% of the building value or $25,000, whatever is greater. So for the public safety building, for example, that'll be $208,000 deductible. For City Hall, $147,000. So while we've seen a premium lower than what we expected, the reality is we're going to be paying for it when we actually have claims. Wage increases, again, police, fire, ASME, non-union, overall, all of our city employees, those are substantial increases. And then with Ignite coming online, great project. It's exciting to see that starting to come out of the ground now. We're being told they'll be up and operational first quarter of 2025. And so we have budgeted kind of the first 5 months of that programming of $150,000, which allows our residents to get into the facility and use those amenities that will be in our community here in Johnston. Efficiency efforts, and this is again online. I'm not going to go through every one of these slides or point by point, but we actually put together this probably 4 or 5 weeks ago. At our last public hearing, there was a question of, where are you being efficient? And we just, again, want to show that we've done a lot of stuff. Library's done a lot of cross-training. Public Works, they can now remote into their traffic cameras, fix problems without even actually going out to the field. They have put in switch gears so that when we have a power outage and the generator comes on, that it just seamlessly switches over. We are now have fiber to all of our different facilities, which again, We know when the alarm occurs and reduces the number of false alarms when the radio connectivity is lost. So again, we've looked for ways to save on those overtime costs. Fire, we have a long-term agreement now with the city of Grimes for the 2080 agreement. Again, that saves, the fire study that was done a few years ago. This partnership with the city of Grimes saves the taxpayers of Johnston over $800,000 annually. So it's a great partnership. With the new 2080, we've now consolidated all the employees and all onto one payroll system. So that saves both administrative burden at the fire division, but also for both cities, we'll see some savings just on processing payroll. And our administrative overhead will be part of the fire district, and we'll get reimbursed from the city of Grimes for those costs. Police department, again, with the Northwest annexation area, we didn't add new officers to cover that, but we have an agreement now with Polk County to provide services and coverage there. We're seeing more with our CSI, for example, being able to have a dedicated individual, again, allowing kind of that continuity of service and just better level of service through that one individual. Again, police equipment, getting better equipment, so we have a dedicated equipment. So again, when we have that crime, we don't have to go back to the station, pick up equipment, go out to the scene again. It's just all ready to seamlessly go out there. A great upgrade that just recently occurred with the in-car video system. They now work in a line with the body cams. And so again, it's one system. We don't have to worry about trying to sync two separate systems. Again, adds those efficiencies in the department. We've seen we have an online HR system now. Again, makes that onboarding, everything from onboarding through job reviews, performance reviews. The fire department, we are part of a testing group that we're doing those tests for trying to get eligibility lists in the fire department. Again, that we have one, we participate in that, and we don't have to put on our own training, our testing in there. Community development, they've added software to make the tracking for all of the federal MS4 stormwater work that we have to do and the tracking of that. I know with the homeowner soil quality restoration grant and through GIS and that whole product had made it really easy to get those maps out and to work with citizens and residents on that. Finance department, we've added new budget software to, again, help us in the budget preparation and trying to provide increased transparency. In fact, if people have not went out on our website, we have our entirety of our budget up there with explanations and graphics. The document itself is like 800 pages. It's very thorough, very detailed. Again, trying to get that transparency to the public. So let's dive in now to the fiscal year 2025 budget itself. When we look at all funds, so this is general fund all the way to our enterprise funds, in the current projected FY 2024, you can see our revenues were 70 million, expenditures are 82 million. For fiscal year 2025, our revenues are 78 million, so they are up, but our expenditures still are exceeding our revenues of 83 million. We project we'll have an ending balance of $46 million. These are all planned expenditures. There are a number of major projects in there, so there's nothing that should be shocking or alerting to council. Our general fund itself, so this is where our property taxes go. This is the general fund runs our day-to-day operations here at the city. We had a starting balance for the current fiscal year 2024 of 9 million, revenues of 21 million, expenditures of 23 million with an ending balance of 7 million. Our proposed fiscal year 2025, again, starting balance is 7 million. Our revenues are up to 22 million. And our expenditures are actually a little bit lower at $23.8 million. So we'll have an ending balance of $5.3 million. And general fund includes a lot of areas like our local option sales tax. So if the council's trying to say, oh wait, that's a little bit below your 25% goal, we know that. But in our actual general fund, our Fund 10, it does equate out to that we'll have an ending balance of 25%. For the public to understand, we start our fiscal year on July 1, We don't receive our first real property tax payment till the end of October, because you guys pay in September to the county, then we get the check from the county at the end of October. We need to be able to go basically 33% of the year on that reserve. And we're able to do that because we do push some of our major capital items until we get that first property tax payment. And so we do really plan through that. And so that's why we do carry that 25% reserve. There are a few new positions in the proposed budget. We have 2 new police officers. We have a mechanic. With retirement of our assistant city administrator finance director, we have decided to split that into 2 positions. And then we are funding the rec coordinator for the first 5 months. And again, that's for the Ignite facility and work there. Again, we kind of changed a little bit of our budget process. Staff worked to implement. In the past years, we had decision packages. We kind of went away with that and provided a overall budget, but the next few slides kind of represent what those decision packages would have been at if they were presented to council. And as you look at the funding, the parts to remember is, unless it says general fund, those don't have property tax implications. They obviously are taxpayer funds, but an elimination of an item that is not general fund would not lower the property tax askings. But you'll see in the police department, again, with the new police officers, adding a patrol vehicle, adding automated license plate reader to really understand who and what is coming into the community from a crime prevention perspective, implement our youth diversion program, and then replace the CSI camera, and that's our digital forensics. In the fire district, the only new item would be the station alerting software, and implementing that into the 2 Johnston stations. When the Grimes new station gets built in, that'll be one of the capital cost Grimes will provide. Animal control, as we know, the ARL is no longer providing the feral cat kind of handling of those, so providing a TNR program that's included in this year's budget. Public Works, purchasing a new 1-ton pickup with a snow plow, a brine trailer, and then a mechanical gate at their facility, again, to provide some efficiencies in that operation. Parks and Rec, adding additional part-time staff. Now that is offset by the actual association here at the town center, but that is a $20,000 cost, but does get offset with revenue from the town center. And then the Ignite user agreement, which we've discussed earlier. The next couple slides go through some of the major capital improvement projects. For fiscal year 2025, there's $26 million in capital improvements. Kind of in categories, we'll see fire at $2.2 million. That really is the aerial tower truck that we're seeing. Again, one of those capital items that has exorbitantly increased over the last number of years, but it is, we need to replace that. It's actually been, do we have one in service today? I know we last week or 2, we did not even have one in service. So it's a needed upgrade. Police, $178,000, again, some of our servers and additional vehicles. Parks, $3.1 million. And again, it's just some equipment, and it's a number of projects throughout our different parks in the community. Public Works, $3.9 million, a lot of road projects, and then some utility work of extending some water and sewer to the Northwest Annexation area. Stormwater, $970,000, not $970. There's a decimal instead of a comma. But updating our watershed plan, and then some additional projects throughout the community. And then the library, some minor equipments of some roof replacement, server replacement, and adding some printers of $187,700. So I want to go through an option, because I know at the last public hearing we heard, what can be done. And one of the areas that we did see some enjoyment and some savings, some unexpected savings, was our tort liability areas. So we have good news and bad news with that. We planned for 20 to 30% increase. We didn't see that. Now we did our increase originally when we were talking with council was a $390,000 and that was based on the original FY 2024 budget. The actual increase, because we did see a rate increase from when we actually approved the FY 2024 budget, our amended budget as of today, that increase was only $224,000. We've received our final premiums. They increased from $621,000 to $712,000, so it's a difference of $89,000. It is much lower than what most communities are experiencing, which is good news for Johnston. It also shows some of the risk management methods that we've undertaken to try to bring some of those costs down. But we do see higher deductible. So it's one of those things we have to think about how much risk and how are we protecting the city as we move forward. And so, for example, when we look at the July 2021 hailstorm, the city had a total loss of $834,000. We actually did not replace everything, so actual recoverable or less recoverable depreciation, what we actually received in dollars from that claim was $670,000. Our deductible was only $1,000 then. And so you can see how much they've changed that deductible over the last number of years. If the new deductibles that we have that are in place today, if those would have been in place July 2021, we would have had a $342,000 deductible. So that's, one of those things we had to really think about. Now we did, again, we didn't replace everything. We received dollars, and we did set aside $395,000 in a building reserve. Now we put that in a building reserve very particularly because we knew that we didn't replace every roof that had damage. We didn't see leaks, and it just didn't make sense at that juncture. But we know that at some point we're going to have to start replacing those roofs. So we set those aside. But certainly some of those dollars could be diverted into a risk management reserve to help cushion that future deductible we may see when we have a major claim. We did receive some information from our insurance broker. We have worst case scenario, tornado goes through Johnston, takes out every city facility, very unlikely. Our total deductible would be $1.7 million that the city would have. Again, even our broker would tell you that's really just worst case scenario, very unlikely for that to happen. Again, we talked about that the minimum we would have needed in reserves based on the 2021 storm was $343,000. Through some calculations that True North, our broker's done, they report our maximum probable loss would be somewhere in the range of $908,000. So the question becomes, at what point do you want to get to cover your risk? How much risk does the council want? Again, the July 2021 storm occurred in the beginning of our fiscal year. We don't have a lot of reserves that do sit around at that point. It is a little bit more critical timing for the city, and that's, again, a likely time where we're going to receive a major claim. And so that's the factor that we have to really consider. Again, there's also a question of, do we want to continue to be on a broker basis or getting a fully funded insurance? Do we go self-funded? And if we do that, again, we're going to need to have a reserve to allow us to make that transition. Now, certainly we would buy stopgap insurance. We wouldn't take on that entire liability as we do that. So there are two options I would throw out there for the council to consider. And as we look at this, right now we've published to set our levy at $11.4579. That's what was published. That is the maximum our levy can be at this point. With a lower than expected increase in insurance premiums, we could do a reduction, and that certainly would slow our ability to have a risk management fund. But I would suggest that a 2-cent decrease to 1143.79, that would reduce our overall property tax dollars citywide by $33,830. And that would then allow us to begin building a modest risk management reserve of approximately $190,000. So tonight, that's what I would be recommending to council, is we actually lower the levy rate that we had published from the 1145.79 to 1143.79. And I do have a revised resolution that I can distribute if the council would so like to entertain that option. So with that, I would basically say thank you residents and property taxpayers for listening to this. I think it's always important when we have engagement in this important process, and I'm happy to answer any questions the council or residents would have.
Let's start with questions from the council, and then we'll be asking the public members that are here who want to speak to this to come forward. But first of all, I just want to say thank you, Mike, for putting together this, what is it, 48 pages? 48-page slide presentation here on our city budget this year. Very detailed. I'm hoping that as our residents were sitting there listening to it, I hope it answered a lot of the questions that you might have had coming into the meeting tonight.
And I should interject here, Mayor, because I simply overlooked it. It isn't my work per se. And we really have to
It was the
thank-
work of the entire
we have to
staff. No,
thank
I
the
understand
staff
that.
for what they've done, because reality, a lot of hours go into this. And so I do
Absolutely.
want to thank the staff for their hard work.
Absolutely. This was a major cooperative effort to pull it together, no doubt about it. I think that, one of the things that it represents pretty clearly, I think, is just how difficult putting this budget together this year was. I and several of the council members up here, well, everyone's been through this process more than once, but, several of us have been through it many, many times. And I can tell you from my personal perspective, this was the most difficult that we've ever had. And I don't know that next year is going to be any easier. So just forecasting, folks, that this is not easy stuff that we're dealing with here. But I do appreciate all of the information that you have provided tonight. I also appreciate the fact that we knew that at the last meeting that we had that there might be an issue around the property casualty premium increase and maybe some opportunity there to do something with a little bit of the excess that we had already built into the budget. So I appreciate you working and the rest of our staff working with our insurance broker to see what the possibilities are. Obviously, the premium has come down, but the deductible has gone up significantly. And we can't leave ourselves naked to that kind of exposure. And so again, it really is all about what kind of risk are we willing to assume in these situations. So I think that what you've proposed here, a 2-cent reduction in the property tax levy with the expectation that we would build a reserve for those insurance losses that we might have. I think that makes a lot of sense. One of the questions that I have for you, Mike, is we've been talking about taking another look at our property casualty coverage and what we need to be doing there. Will our broker be helping us kind of build this risk management reserve that is suggested here?
Yeah, I mean, they have and will continue to work with us to kind of give us guidance on targets. I think even beyond the risk management, one of the things we've started the conversation with our broker is, what are our other options? We are in EMC insurance today through a cooperative group. We are actually the largest member in that cooperative group. And so if we ever decide to leave that cooperative group, they actually would not allow us back in. And there isn't a lot of options for cities. I mean, it's such a unique niche market. We have two options. EMC, where we're at today, or probably ICAP, which is another kind of group of cities and counties that have come together to develop insurance, or it's more risk management. It's not truly insurance, it's a cooperative. Or if you want to step out of the kind of the insurance market, is doing self-funded. And so they're going to work with us and kind of give us some guidance on some options for us to consider. But you don't want to do these quickly. They need to be well thought out, and that's what we're going to work through over the next year.
Well, it would be great to get to a position where we're more in the driver's seat on what these increases will be, but we got to work through that process and make sure that we're doing it right. So, council, have any questions for Mike?
Mayor, I do. Mike, I'm sorry to put you on the hot seat like this because I know that you have been very proactive in this, but We, as you described today, do have a small, maybe third of where we'd like it for catastrophic, claim reserve. So we could absorb some from that if we encountered some sort of mass wind, hail, tornado type event within the city. What I hear you saying is that even with a 2-cent decrease, we can still continue to supplant that by estimates of 190,000, getting us up to almost half of where we should be, or maybe just slightly half of where we should be overall for reserve. Is that correct?
That a maximum loss, that maximum probable loss, yes.
Sure. And I realize I'm not a actuary, first of all.
Me neither.
I'm not a fortune teller. I'm not even a weather forecaster. And frankly, I've got multiple apps on my phone because I don't even question one forecast of weather. So I don't even want to go down those types of risk analysis. But here's where I put you on the spot. If we weren't to be building up this reserve further, where would we have to tap to try to make ourselves whole?
Well, I think one of the things to keep in mind is, for example, let's say we're going to choose to go self-funded. It is a great leap of faith. And to a certain extent, you hope that you are looking at good data, understand what your claims are. And I don't want to spend an hour talking about it, but previous organization I worked for, we went from fully insured to fully self-insured. And we had no reserves, but looking at data, we made that educated decision, and we ended the first year with $300,000 surplus. And eventually, at the end of 3 years, we had $1 million, and that's where we needed the reserves to be at. What you get fearful of is that first year, if you have a really bad year, it can bite you, and it can take you a number of years to kind of dig out of that. But you look at it over the long term, and it's really over the long term. We know, for example, with EMC, we're paying a profit of somewhere between 15 and 20%. And so that's the margin you're trying to save versus doing self-funded versus doing fully insured. And so those are the things that you have to try to think about. And then again, it's the long game. Is year 1, 2, and 3 going to be good so that you're actually in the positive and you can withstand that big claim, or you can have big claim in year 1? And that's the risk, and that's the thing that we have to really think through and make a very educated decision on.
Thank you.
Just a quick question, Mike. So, one of the things you had in your document towards the end was, I'm just trying to look. I was looking at a different page there for a minute, about capital projects, and so it's the capital improvement projects. Those are, if somebody was like, well, let's look through those and maybe we don't need to do all those. Those are mostly funded with debt financing, right? So those aren't really items that we're talking about tonight. Is that a fair statement?
Some of it's by debt, some of the debts we've already issued. Some of those may be actually grant funding we're receiving. So they may actually be funded through like MPO dollars or state dollars. And so we can eliminate a project and it's not going to make a difference, and we're getting dollars back. So there is a variety of funding sources those come from. If it is a city debt and we haven't issued it, we can eliminate it, but reality is that we issue a lot of 10, 20-year debts, so they have a really small impact on the upfront.
Right.
Yep.
And then one other thing, just kind of a clarification item, when we talk about property casualty insurance, and those costs are not just driven by weather events, that also includes tort risk. So if an employee brings a suit against the city, that's covered by that policy too. So it's broader than just
Yeah, I mean,
you know,
it's.
avoiding the hailstorms. And
Yeah.
there's just a lot of things that are kind of covered by, I think that's just important for everybody to understand.
It's our
too, is
auto
it's-
insurance too, you know,
Yeah,
so there's a
yeah,
lot of areas.
property casualty is kind of a misnomer a little bit, because it really covers a lot of different things. Okay, great. Those are my two primary questions, so thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions for Mike?
I would like to say, I don't have a question for Mike, but I'd like to just say thank you, Mike, for doing this work and all the staff. I know this has been a very challenging financial year. We have had a lot of obstacles to cross to make this happen. So all the time and effort you guys have put on to make this happen, it's really appreciated. We're making sure that still the quality of life in Johnston is still the same, with not a large increase in our levy rates. So thank you all, appreciate you guys, and actually thank all these council members as well, working together to make this happen. So thank you.
Any other questions or comments before we invite our residents to come up? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the council on this item? You could state your name and your address, please.
Sure. My name is Suzanne Tovar. I've lived in Johnston for over 35 years, and I'm currently living at 6540 Northwest 54th Court, over by the Dewey Park area, and a couple blocks from this building. Thank you for explaining and providing further information, because those were some of the questions that I had, but you did answer some of those. So I'm here today to express my concerns regarding the proposed property tax increase. I'm still trying to wrestle with the 10.855 is going to bring in about $1 million. When I went onto the city website, looked at everything I could, got out a magnifying glass for some of the charts that you have in there, since I can't read them, even when I print them from there. But it showed that with that, there would be almost $1 million with and I assume that's with our increase, our property values increase, where it was estimated to be $1 million. And so that was going to be, that you were going to get from there. So I got a little confused with the budget. And then I got a little further confused when I looked at, and you showed the slide, I'm still trying to figure out how Ankeny, Urbandale, Clive, Altoona, and West Des Moines are below 11, but we're going to want to go up and even higher. I understand that Waukee's higher, but I think of Waukee as being different from there, but that's where I don't quite know why we have to go that high. Thank you for explaining about the businesses, because all I can see is all the construction, and so all I can think of is all the dollars. But I don't know if there's a deferring of taxes for those businesses. I know we went into, I assume from what I read on some articles, we went into agreement with Ignite, and then Bombers, I don't know if we gave them an incentive for them to build, I hope I'm calling it right, the golf place and the hotel. Did we end up doing some agreement with them or not?
We do have what's called a tax increment financing rebate agreement with them.
Yes, and I tried to learn about that, and that will probably take me 8 hours just to figure that out. But I'm hoping from what you told me, the businesses are building, and like Quick Star's coming and Starbucks is coming, and those look like they'll be coming along pretty fast. You will still have that delay even after they open for about a couple of years.
Yes, so Starbucks and Quick Start will both open this year. They both started construction this year. They'll
Right.
open. Their assessed value doesn't come online till January 1 of 2025. And then we won't see, they're not taxed on that new value until the beginning of 2027. And so we won't see the first property tax dollars come in until be October of 2027.
And then the facilities like Bombers and then Ignite, there will be some tax that will see some tax brought to the city from that.
We do, even though with our tax increment financing deals, we don't give them 100% of it back, but so we'll see some benefit of that.
Okay. And then what I don't quite understand is with Ignite, if we made an agreement with them, how do we have this budget item? And I don't know if I saw it tonight, but last 2 weeks ago, you showed that 150,000 was like not budgeted, not expected.
It wasn't that it wasn't budgeted or expected, it's a new budget item. And so again, just highlighting for the public and council's awareness that, this wasn't something we had in previous fiscal years, so it is a new item for the fiscal year 2025. So with our agreement with Ignite, we've agreed to buy a certain amount of time that our residents can then actually utilize the facility. And so we plan to provide programming using that space, which saves us a tremendous amount, that we don't have the facility cost or the maintenance cost. And, that agreement says at least for 5 years we'll do that. We have options to renew that and continue it for up to 15 years in the current agreement.
Options for that, because I didn't quite know if we already knew that was gonna happen. Yes, it's a new budget item, but it was listed as a reason why to raise our taxes. So that got confusing for me. It looks like, according to what was on the website also, have we already spent 1.3 million on the Ignite public park improvements? Because it shows when there was the capital improvement plan, it showed that 600,000 in 2023 and 700,000 in 23-24, but maybe we haven't spent that
I don't
yet.
believe we've expended all those funds. Some of those funds are regarding some stormwater improvements, but there is some public parkland adjacent to the Ignite facility
Right.
that is yet to be developed. And then there's some parking lot improvements that the city's agreed to do as part of the Ignite development.
So is there a possibility of deferring some of those funds if you're having difficulty with this budget year or not, or?
I mean, I think there's some contractual obligations we have with Ignite on that.
Okay. And then I thought the dog park was an idea, but I guess I see that we already spent 250,000 on it in 23-24, and you're budgeting 500,000 for next year. So we're gonna have a $750,000 dog park?
Yes.
Is that true? Okay. And I just bring that up because it makes me think of the wants and the needs. And so that's where it's surprising where we have all these open spaces. And if new developers are coming in, multifamily homes or anything, we put it onto the developers that they create the green space and the areas for the dogs. If we're really truly at a crunch, we look at every single thing before we go right to the residents and say, we can't make it, this was our plan. And there might be some things that we had as an idea and we really wanted to get it to fruition, but like all the businesses across the country, some of them had said, sorry, we can't do that. So I'm just bringing it up from there. I assume you looked at every single department and evaluated every single department when you were looking at where am I gonna find the dollars? Because I saw that our, for personnel, we're at 98% of the market index, and we want the target to be 95 to 105%. So I thought, well, I would think that's pretty high to be competitive. Does it need to be? And then on the employee health plan, I went into shock because it says employees contribute to 20% of the premium. And that I went into shock regarding that they only put 20% into their health insurance premium. I work for the federal government. I don't have that great of a deal. So that's where I don't want to negatively impact employees, but we need to look at every single line item before we go straight to the residents is all I can think of. And then I see that there's a budgeted dollars to expand our sewer system. However, I really would like to know what resident neighborhood. I live by the Dewey Park area. There was a meeting a few years ago regarding sewer install, and then no recent meetings later. Our area town is still on septic. Many years ago, the city installed a non-functioning storm drain, which I had to financially assist with install, and I've continued to pay monthly since that time. And this rate continues to increase for a non-functioning system. The drain was installed incorrectly because it doesn't drain. The water has to go uphill to get to the drain. But when I went to Johnston Public Works several years ago, that current manager stated, yes, it was installed incorrectly by a previous person. and he had bigger issues to deal with than the storm drain installed in my section of town. So although I would like to see a sewer install, I am concerned it might be done wrong again. And even though if I'm providing partial payment for it, and I'll have a substantial increase in my monthly utility bill. So I know I asked at the original meeting, could I get some credit for all the years that I've been paying for a non-functioning storm drain? So another thing I noticed on your strategic plan, hire a neighborhood inspector and begin housing study. I assume we aren't going to do that this year. That's for later on, another year.
So we've hired the neighborhood inspector. That was in the previous fiscal year. So
Okay.
you're looking at our previous strategic plan
Okay.
document.
So I'll find out later what's the objectives and goals that that person would be. And is it just one person or is it,
Yes.
okay. We already talked about the dog park that I thought was just an idea. Have we already hired to create a sustainability shared position?
We have not.
Okay. And then all I wanted to, another thing I need to know is on the city council, are there representatives for every section of Johnston? And if so, we would love to know who ours is, so then we could.
City council members all run at large, so each of the council members up here represent the entire community. So you can contact any of them at any time.
Okay, so there isn't one by a section.
Right.
No.
Someone was telling us, oh yes, they're by sections, but I couldn't find that on the website. So I just wanted to say that again, all of us in our own homes are required to evaluate what are our wants and what are our needs. You know, I want a Ferrari, but I might need a Ford. So I think, you know, if you can please take that into consideration. And I understand that you want us to come to all these meetings, but the average citizen of Johnston doesn't have the time to review 800-page documents, because that one was 890, I thought. I'm not going to print all that. They don't always have time to attend all the city council meetings while still completing job and family duties. And so I always thought of our city council taking our needs as account, our needs, not my wants, my needs, as a fiduciary. And now I'm not sure, but I again, there's a lot of things I don't know too. Because I am all for city growth, but we really need to look how the financial burden of these projects is negatively impacting the residents of this city. The residents are seeing increased taxation by the city, and let's not forget the school. At least I was able to find things on your website and come to a hearing and be offered the opportunity to get up here. That's not quite what the school does. But please have someone notice the total financial impact. Thank you for allowing me to voice my concern.
Thank you, Suzanne.
I am Jose Tovar. I live at 6540 Northwest 54th Court. I've been a resident for 35 years here, same house, same street. I feel, and I don't know if this is the correct word, but a little resentment towards the request for more tax dollars to be paid. I look all around me in the city and see infrastructure improvement after infrastructure improvement. A number like River Bend to Eagle Crest, 4.2 miles, 8-foot wide sidewalks, grading, seating. I see this town center. I see 62nd Street from Merle Hay all the way to Grimes, 4 lanes, roundabouts. I see 70th Avenue, Camp Dodge Road from Merle Hay west, 3 miles and beyond, 4 lanes, roundabouts. I see 100th Street from 70th to 62nd, that's 1 mile, 4 lanes, roundabouts, and a new high school. Now I see that 100th Street, south from 62nd, where the Casey's is, being torn up and improved with stormwater and possible sanitary sewers. It is my opinion that the city, and I'm not blaming anybody on this council, but the city has abdicated its responsibility to a select group of neighborhoods from 55th near the interstate north to 66th, east of Merle Hay. Now, it is true that over the past 5 to 10 years, the city has been able to pave and install sewer system from 55th to 62nd, a distance of 9/10 of a mile. This still leaves half a mile long and a 2-block wide swath of homes that still have no curb and gutter and no sanitary sewer. This neglect by the city is my source of resentment. All other areas appear to be and have a higher priority than my northwest or northeast neighborhood. Now, I do not begrudge or resent the building of Ignite or Bombers or the apartment complexes or any development. I just would like to see, finally, the completion of sewer, paving, curb and gutter on the east side of Merle Hay from the interstate up to North Glen. So yeah, these neighborhoods deserve to have the city fulfill their duty to maintain and improve infrastructure within these areas. I hope I do not have to put in a new septic system before the city gets around to improving our streets and sewers in this neighborhood. That's all I have to say.
Well, Jose, thank you for being here and thank you for sharing those comments. I want you to know that we are fully committed to making those improvements north of 62nd Avenue. Matt or Mike, can you update on where we're at with that?
Can you put my computer back up? So one of the things in the 800-page document that we had out there is our capital improvement plan. And so I think we're working on getting my computer back up on the screen so everyone can see it.
Yeah, I didn't know if
Yep.
I don't know if I saw this corner on that.
Yep. So.
Well, thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah,
because
and,
it's-
and so under our capital improvement, if you go to our one-year plan section, you can actually come down here and the easiest is to see, you can actually start seeing phases of the east of Merle Hay Road. So there's one there, there's another one here, but one of the first projects will be this Northwest 62nd Street from Beaver to 54th. That's really one of the first projects that has to be done because we have to get some stormwater improvements put in place to enable us then to start moving into the east of Merle Hay. And then we do have in one of these, I don't know, Matt, if you want to talk about some of the phasing that's planned.
Yeah, zoom out on that a little bit.
Yeah, we're still in discussion with city council on how that phasing moves through the neighborhood. Mike, you were correct. We're constructing Beaver Drive first, the rest of 62nd down to Beaver Drive to put those storm sewer improvements, because some of those storm sewer improvements will take water off of the neighborhoods to the north. And then we'll move into those neighborhoods after that project. And I think we're looking around the time frame of 2027 to move north into those neighborhoods and begin those. And there's 9 phases through those neighborhoods that we're looking at. So it'll take a while to move through that neighborhood. But they'll get new storm sewer, new water mains, and new sanitary with that, as long as with new road surfaces as well.
Plans like was stated of how we would like it to be. Some of the streets do not have the huge basin, is what I'm calling, and some of them didn't have to have that, but I was thinking the child safety issue. And so would we be involved in that, or becoming okay to do this? So that's they have a meeting and let us know the other major meeting. So excited, and then we're really
It was about, I think it was 2018, 2019, then we kind of went through COVID, and we have to be able to have those one-on-one meetings with the homeowners. So we did have to extend those conversations or delay those conversations. We will be having meetings when we get into those project-specific neighborhoods. We'll invite the neighborhood in to have those discussions prior to having any design done, just like we did with the neighborhoods to the south.
So we might have discussions with
It'll be before that. It'll be, typically it's about a year or so before that so that we can have those discussions. We want those comments to be included in the design of the project, which generally happen 2 to 3 years prior to the project.
You're not forgotten. We talk about this quite a bit, so we'll be in touch with you soon to get some more specific details to you as well as your input. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to address the council?
Rob Wood, 6003 Dogwood Circle. Just listening to the research that she has done, when looking at those slides, dog park, emergency vehicles, you know, the fire truck was $500,000. Do we really need a dog park at that point when we're talking about safety, as you say? Going through this presentation a second time, I realized that there were a lot of nice to haves in there. But in times like these, you can't always get what you want. And when we talk about, you guys spend a lot of time talking about insurance, well, less employees equals less insurance. Therefore, there's some savings there as well as salaries and everything else. So there's got to be a point where you have to say, we want to provide services, but we can't have everything. There's been a lot of talk about deferred projects and things of that nature. Yeah, I think this is a good time for that. I really do. And the other thing that was in that slide that concerns me is the camera system that you want to put up. You have to surveil the good people to know who the bad people are coming into the neighborhood. And as people, as Americans, we have to assume some liability for our own protection. You cannot rely on the government to protect every single person in this area. That's a non-starter. That is the police state, the surveillance state that we were taught in high school, because some of you are in my peer group. What they teach now is not near like that. But that is a concern. It's a violation of privacy. So that should not even be in the budget. It should not even be considered, to be honest with you. We have a police force that is near max. You're asking for an additional one. Well, not every city gets to max out their police. So please consider that these property taxes have a larger impact on the individual than it does the city, and it eventually drags everyone else down. It's basic economics. The more that the government takes out of the revenue of the people, of the individual, the less money there is for everyone. You do not actually increase in tax revenue. The miracle of the capitalist system is that when you reduce taxes, all of a sudden there's surpluses because people are spending money that they would otherwise just give to the government. So these are things that have to be considered. These are basic principles that have to be considered. And you need to find ways to say no. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Chief, do you want to share just a little information about the camera system that's being proposed? I think there might be a misunderstanding of exactly what it does.
Sure, and I would be more than happy, first off, to meet with you and show you some of the information related to these systems. But I think there's a lot of confusion about government watchdog as far as camera systems go, and that's not what these cameras do. These are automated license plate reader systems that capture the license plate information that runs against the national want and warrant database that we as police officers have. So there's an opportunity to interdict crime in the same way that you would put a Ring doorbell camera on your front doorstep to be able to capture events that may come into your property. So what it does is it will send an automated alert to the police officers that are working at the time that has a relation to a national want and warrant. It also provides jurisdictions all across the metropolitan area and all across the United States that participate in this system to create what we call a hot list. And with that, so if there is a vehicle that is involved in a robbery or anything that has a crime of a local connection to it, we have the ability to capture that information and be alerted immediately as that crime in progress occurs. It gets down to the granular of being able to identify damaged vehicles involved in a hit and run. There's damage to a car, a bumper sticker that's a suspect vehicle in a drive-by shooting, those sorts of things. So there's a tremendous amount of data and research that I'm happy to share with you on it. This is not something where an individual has if they're the registered owner of a vehicle, they're not having their license plate information captured and run for their driver status. It's not something where there's a situation where we have a database then to know the person that is driving into our community. It's metadata. It's not something to that granular level where we're going to actually capture information on the individual. It runs automated in a system that bounces information off this national database as well as all of the crimes in progress that are reported. And then it gives us the opportunity, for example, we have a shooting involved in Johnston. A suspect vehicle flees in a certain direction. We're able to put in that information. It's a white SUV headed southbound from this direction. It might cross out of Johnston into Urbandale. Urbandale has these systems, so we're going to work together to be able to interdict that crime as it occurs. There are success stories of interdictions that happen all across our metropolitan area and all across the United States from it, but I understand your concern, and I'm happy to have a greater discussion with you. This probably isn't the format for it, but we could happy to meet if you're up to it.
Rob, I need to interrupt. We need to get back to the budget here. But thank you for your concerns. Certainly appreciate them. And I would just encourage you to follow up with the chief if you want to learn more about the camera system as well as our police department and how they operate generally. You know, I think we have one of the very best police departments anywhere. And, you know, it's important to us that we make sure that we provide those public safety services to our community, whether it's the police or whether it's the fire. That's the most important service that we provide to our community, and that is public safety. And so they do an amazing job. I don't think, I would be the last one to say that we have too many cops and too many firefighters on our streets. In fact, we're lean on both, but they do a great job, even though we don't have the maximum amount that we probably should have to provide those services. They do an incredible job. And, even with the addition of 2 more police officers this year, we're still not where we need to be in terms of the population that we have here in Johnston. But they do an amazing job, and I would just encourage you to follow up with the chief and have those conversations with him. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to address the council on the budget? This is a public hearing. If not, then we will close the public hearing at 8:39. Council, other questions or comments?
I would like to make a comment. Mayor, I just would like to say that one of the things that friends, neighbors have always asked me is how do we decide on how many police officers and firemen we need? And we do rely on our chiefs to tell us what the needs are. And the way they tell us how many we need is they base it on the size of our city, the location of our city, and what is a recommended number of officers per 1,000. At least this is for the police force. Anyway, the only reason I bring that up is I say we rely on our chiefs to give us the best information possible to set up when they tell us that we need more police officers, not only to make sure that we cover all shifts adequately, they are comparing our city to other Midwest cities of the same size. We're not getting compared to Chicago. And the other thing that I will say to each and every one of my friends and neighbors who talk to me about how come we're hiring another police officer or how come it seems very expensive. Well, we want them to be adequately outfitted. We want them to be safe and well-equipped. And not, they need to be safe and they need to be safely equipped. And the biggest thing for me is they need to be professionally trained. They need to be experts at what they do, because what they do is so important and as we all know in this society, can turn bad so quickly. So I will never not support our police officers getting all the professional training they need. And the other thing is, Mike, I think you should hire Suzanne to go over some of our forums before you ever present anything else to us. Just want to say. So thank you.
Other council comments, questions?
I think Councilperson Martin said it really well, and I think, part of the challenge of reviewing the budget, and we had the way that, I don't know how many council meetings you've been to, but we always meet, almost always meet an hour ahead of time. It's an open meeting, it's a public meeting, it's called a work session. And it's from 6 to 7 before every council meeting. And typically it's an agenda to talking about an item that we're going to likely have in a future council meeting. And I went back and looked at our agenda items for those work sessions, and at our 2 work sessions in January and our 2 work sessions in February. So for a total of 4 hours, we worked through the budget. We worked through all of these different choices. And because we knew that this was going to be a hard budget year. And I think the mayor said it very well. Next year is going to be hard, and I would guess the future years are going to be hard. And there's a primary driving force behind that. Primary driving force is that the number one cost for governments is personnel. It's not paper clips, it's personnel. And we are committed, and I think both Mike and the mayor have talked about this before, talking about what is our strategic vision for the city. And our strategic vision is to hire really good people and to give them the resources they need to do the job the way it needs to be done, whether that's the police department, the fire department, the building department, public works. And the number one thing that I have heard from residents and over the last 6 to 8 months is not about what are you doing on property taxes. I rarely hear about that. What I hear from residents is, hey, my daughter, she ran a stop sign or she did something and the police officer stopped her and couldn't have been nicer, couldn't have been more professional. I kind of wish the police officer had been a little tougher on her, but he was so professional. Or a firefighter, we have firefighters that after we had the fire, the apartment complex a couple weeks ago, fire was put out and they hung around to make sure those folks got the stuff moved safely, right? Their job was in theory done, but they stayed and they worked hard because they're committed to the community. We recognized a firefighter tonight who's worked in this community for a long, long time. And he's continuing to build his profession and get more training. And those are the types of people we want working for the city. And you know who the types of cities that want them working for them? It's called Ankeny. It's called Urbandale. It's called West Des Moines. It's called Grimes. Luckily, we don't have to compete with Grimes on the fire department side because we partner with them in a way to help try to find savings. So these are all kind of the challenging elements that we go through to try to work through a budget. I respect that you disagree with the budget that's in front of you tonight, or you feel that we have not worked adequately enough to not put this on the back of property taxpayers. And I understand that frustration, but I want to tell you, we have worked really, really hard this year, and we have, just as we have worked every year previously, to do everything we can to figure out how to reduce the size of the budget. And Mike, in his presentation, identified several things that we do to try to find savings and be as efficient as we can. There aren't any other cities in the state of Iowa that share a fire department like we do with Grimes, to the size of the cities we are. And because of that, the administrative costs are much lower. We share those costs. There are other examples too that Mike highlighted of ways that we try to be efficient. And at the same time, we also prioritize important projects. The Eastern Merle Hay project that both you folks talked about is a really important priority. That infrastructure has to be extended to that area, but it's really expensive. And it's going to have a significant impact on the debt levy part of our budget. And so that's why it's going to have multiple phases. But I want to assure you, never have we moved that project back a year because of Ignite or some other project. Never. That project is a high priority for several members of the council, as it is for you. Appropriately so, because that's a project that needs to happen. But it's going to take time, because we're trying to do it as efficiently as possible. So those are all kind of the challenges that we go through as part of the budget. I really appreciate you coming out and sharing your perspective. And it's just all part of the budgeting process that we have to go through. But I'm very confident that we're making the right decision tonight in adopting what I think will be an amended version of the resolution whenever we get to that point. So thank you.
Other questions or comments?
Mayor, may I add something, hopefully brief and certainly not as eloquent as my council members that kind of sandwich me on other side. They need to sit a little closer so it rubs off a little bit more. I serve on the, as a council liaison to the Johnston Grimes Fire District Fire Board. I along with another council member, am joined by folks from Grimes in serving on that. And it is a great demonstration of efficiency, or at least attempted efficiencies in action. You heard tonight multiple times a $2 million ladder aerial truck. You heard of $500,000 ambulances. We have shared facilities, and we certainly share training, and we certainly share a lot of other things, because we are always looking at not only how we can work and operate most efficiently, but how we can provide the greatest amount of safety to both of those communities. We were tasked / called on the carpet last meeting to make hard decisions. We were asked tonight to say no. And quite frankly, I'm actually going to come to the defense of a lot of the other council members because they told me no. I sat here about a month ago and wanted that levy even higher because I wanted to hire more firefighters. In part because those firefighters slash EMT or firefighter paramedics actually can bring in a slight revenue source potentially, and I hate to say it like that, but on ambulance calls. And quite frankly, in a democratic way, and certainly in an incredibly professional way, my colleagues up here explained, this isn't the time for that. We need to go back to the table. We need to visit with our chief and leadership. We need to continue to work to make sure that we can provide safety, but do so within the means that we have afforded to us, both in our community and in Grimes. They said no. And I said, okay.
Well, not quite like that.
You're right, I was a little more bitter, but quite frank, thanks, Mayor. But the reality is that that is just one of the examples of how the leaders up here are trying to be fiduciaries and trying to be fiscally responsible, not only for your tax dollars, but for all of our tax dollars, for those that do want dog parks, and for those who want other types of parks, and certainly want all of the other services as well. It is not easy, and I think you realize that too. We are grateful for your input, and I definitely will support the amendment that I hope will be coming so that we can at least put this in context, but still continue to provide safe and adequate resources for our citizens and our residents.
Any other comments, questions?
I would like to add a comment. Well, I thought I would add a comment, but after hearing all you three say that, I don't think I'm going to repeat what you just said. I agree with all of you saying what you said. The fire department is very important for us, and we tried to add, but we could not. The police department is very important to us. We need that because of the new areas that we are constructing up Northwest Territory. So appreciate all that we've done so far, the budget process, and how challenging it was this year, and it will be more challenging coming years. So appreciate all your help, all the things you did, the staff, appreciate it. Thank you very much.
I guess now I have to say something. I just want to say that, you know, as Mike's going through his presentation and I'm sitting here, and one of the reasons why I ran for council was to get into the transparency, because I didn't think that at the time I was considering running that they were transparent. And now that I've been here, I know more about city government finances than I do my own. And we have sat across from each other. We've disagreed. You know, there's nobody sitting here that has a pet project. And I'll be the first to tell you, my name's Jim Evans. I live right next door to Dewey Park. And if there's anybody that keeps asking about the area improvements, it's me. And I have not let it go. There are others that live near as well. It is one of our top priorities, and we are going to get to it. It's a big project, big project. And we know about the drainage problems we have and how we're going to phase through all that. And anyway, as I wrote down your address, I hope it's okay if I stop by and say hello sometime. And okay, here we go. Yeah. But the one thing I wanted to stress though is every one of us sitting up here lives in Johnston, and we also have to pay these property taxes. And it affects each one of us just as it affects you. So please, I hate getting charged for stuff. But there are, I mean, this is, we have probably passed one of the hardest detailed, fair budgets I think could ever be done. And it hasn't been easy, but.
Sorry, I just need to say, I think when we look at needs and wants, because I just saw 147 million for next year, 350,000 for this year. I love the trails we have in Johnston, we love them. But if we've got issues where we can't afford to put sewer on some neighborhood streets, would you be offset that we stop them on the trails? I'm just mentioning some things, and I guess I'll just
Well, that's all I have. Thank you.
You know, I don't want to be argumentative, but, you know, I hear what you're saying about needs and wants. I think the residents of our community expect for us to provide quality of life amenities to them. And from their perspective, and it's not just a want. They want a community where their quality of life needs are being met. That's a need. Whether it's parks, whether it's trails, whether it's a dog park. I don't have a dog. But we've been hearing about dog parks for 15 years, almost, you know, for a long, long time. And we're just now getting to the point where we're going to put in a dog park. And so, you know, again, I don't want to argue what is a need or a want, but from the perspective of our residents, many of the things that some of us might think are just wants are actually needs. They want those, they need those in our community for them to live here. So, and we, you know, we balance all of those against everything else when we make budget decisions. So, and none of it's easy. So, Mike, I think we're at the point where we need to make a decision. Put my glasses back on which of the options you proposed. Is that built into?
So if Cindy could put my screen back up, and then I will pass a revised resolution out. So what's on the screen is actually what we published the public hearing on. What I had passed out is a revised resolution. So the yellow number, so the green numbers are the areas that'll decrease by 2 cents under what I just passed out. So the employee benefit is where we would recommend taking the 2 cents out of. So it'll go from 57 to 55 cents. And then the bottom line that is currently 1145 would go to 1143.79. And then the yellow numbers decrease to reflect that change in the levy rate. So
Well, I would be prepared to make a motion to approve Resolution 24-109 with a revised total property tax amount of $11.4379.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
and just clarification, it's $11.4579, not cents.
What?
You said it was 11 cents. I was just clarifying. it's
$11, but
Yeah.
you said 45 cents, and that's not right.
43.
It's 43.
11.
I'm sorry, yeah, 43.
We're both
You're
wrong.
right.
We're both
But you
wrong.
said cents, and I just wanted to clarify that it's
$11.
dollars. So
And 43.790 cents.
eventually we'll confuse everyone, so sorry, I don't. mean to do
Second.
that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Martin,
Yes.
Ready,
Yes.
Burkhart,
Yes.
Coe,
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Do we have a motion to approve resolution number 24-110?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Ready,
Yes.
Burkhart,
Yes.
Coe,
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Motion passed. And do we have a motion to pass? Do we have a motion to approve resolution number 24-111?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Burkhart,
Yes.
Coe,
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Ready.
Yes.
Motion passed.
There's one more motion that needs to be made, Mayor.
Okay,
And it'd be after Resolution 109. So it's a motion to grant the police department authority to increase authorized staffing of sworn professionals, personnel to 37, effective with the fiscal year 24-25 budget.
do we have a motion to grant the police department authority to increase its authorized staffing or sworn personnel to 37, officers effective with the 24-25 budget.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second discussion. Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Coe?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Ready?
Yes.
Burkhart?
Yes.
Motion passed. That completes our work on that. So Mike, going forward, where are we at in the budget process?
This completes
This
the
completes
fiscal
the
year
budget
2025
process.
budget process.
So again, I would just thank you all for coming out tonight. Thank you for your diligence in taking a look at the materials that were prepared. If you have some suggestions on how, we could change the materials so they're more understandable, more transparent, we want to hear that. And we certainly we would encourage you to continue to be engaged, come to our city council meetings, come to our work sessions, and particularly as we get closer to that time when we're looking at the next budget, which we actually start talking about it in November, December.
Staff begins their work honestly earnestly in September, and then we start having discussions in that November, December standpoint. Yes.
So watch our agendas because those conversations will begin later this fall, and we'd love to have you involved in them. So thanks again. We have 2 more public hearings. The next one is a public hearing on the matter of adoption of plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the Orchard Meadows 1 lift station 2024 improvements. Consider resolution number 24-106, adopting plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost. Consider construction bids. Consider resolution number 24-107, making award of contract. And we'll open this public hearing at 9 o'clock.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. On April 9th, the city received 5 bids for the Orchard Meadows Lift Station 2024 improvement project, which includes a new generator along with additional electrical panel improvements, some surface treatment as well. This will help increase the efficiency and redundancy of that lift station, and that takes all of our sanitary sewer north of Northwest 85th Place on Beaver Drive and pumps it down to Merle Hay Road in our low-pressure sewer system. Originally, the project was let back on October 10th of 2023. The city received 1 bid at the price of $358,300. $358,300. The city did reject that bid and looked for some cost savings and some more favorable bidding climate, and it did yield about a 20% reduction in cost. The engineer's opinion of probable cost was $324,500. The low bid that we did receive was $299,568. Van Monen Electric was the low bidder. We have worked with Van Monen as recent as our 62nd and Merle Hay project, as well as Merle Hay and Johnston Drive project. Staff and the engineer would recommend accepting those bids. Happy to answer any questions.
Also have any questions for Matt?
So this lift station serves all the homes that are north of the lift station along Beaver?
Yeah, so you have some of the low pressure system that is north of Northwest 85th Place. And then you have some gravity system that also feeds into Sunset Ridge, that feeds into that Orchard Meadows lift station. It takes all that waste and then pushes it all the way down to Merle Hay. We have a low pressure system all the way down to Merle Hay where it enters a gravity system.
So it's on, those are, some of those residences are on the east side of Beaver and some of them on the west side?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions for Matt? This is a public hearing on this item. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the council? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing at 9:03. We have a motion to approve resolution number 24-106.
I move.
Second?
We have a motion and a second discussion. Any vote?
Just, I guess as part of this brief discussion, I think it's a good example of by rejecting the first bids, we were able to save $60,000 or so with the second round of bids. So that's a good example of a good decision there.
Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Evans?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Ready?
Yes.
Burkhart?
Yes.
Coe?
Yes.
Motion passed. Do we have a motion to approve resolution number 24-107?
I move.
Second.
A motion and a second, discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Martin?
Yes.
Ready?
Yes.
Burkhart?
Yes.
Coe?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Motion passed. Moving on to item 4C, conduct a public hearing and consider approval of the first reading of ordinance number 1117, an official zoning map amendment for 13.137 acres from R160 Small Lot Residential Zoning District to C1 Neighborhood Commercial Zoning District. The subject property is 9901 Northwest 62nd Avenue, PZ case 24-06.
Hi, everybody, again. Just a reminder, I'm Jacob Sheridan, I'm the new planner too here at the city. This was brought on by North Point Church. They're looking to rezone, as we said, from R160 small lot residential to C1 neighborhood commercial residential, primarily for the purpose of to support expansion plans for childcare. The comprehensive plan shows it as public, that future land use is public, semi-public. It is currently zoned R160. Everything to the north of it is R160 small lot residential district to the east as well. And then to the south is, across the road is ag reserve district. And then to the west of it is C1. So it does fit in with the existing zoning that does fit in there. The Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed this and recommended approval of it as well. So I can answer any questions, and I believe we have some people here and they can answer any questions as well.
Council have any questions for Jake?
Quick question, Jacob. Are they trying to build a new childcare center or are they within the complex?
No, they're going to my understanding, they're going to not expand on their current one. So they're going to build to, I believe we might be able to answer better questions here. They're going to build right here on this little section of land, just expand it a little bit more.
Jacob, I have a question about the childcare. So they're talking about expanding their childcare capability. Is this a business? Is this a business that's taking in children during the week, or is this only area held for during church functions?
I believe it is. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, why don't,
Mayor, Council. My name is Evan. I'm the Director of Operations at what's I think legally known still as Johnston Evangelical Free Church, commonly advertised and known as North Point Church. There's going to be an addition proposed about 8,000 square feet to the east. It is for business, Pathways Learning Academy, preschool. If you'd like to know what the rezoning is for in terms of scope, we've already sent mailers specifying kind of the future state, what this kind of phase one is going to create in terms of a community center. Currently, the building you see there is only used typically on the weekends, aside from church functions. And our goal is to eventually become to a place where 7 days a week, it's actually benefiting the community, not only with an opportunity for preschool business, but also other things like cafeteria, pickleball, counseling, so on and so forth. That's the grand scope of the project. But to answer your question, it is going to be a business not just for church function, but for the community of Johnston.
And so you wouldn't have to belong to the church to bring your child there for services?
That is correct.
So I got a question for Jacob, and I'm not sure he can answer it. Is that tax exempt, that business?
Well, it's probably the gentleman who just was there.
Well, maybe that, yeah.
A little bit more. David, is it? I'm not sure.
I mean, that'd be a question we need to ask Polk County Assessor. Ultimately, it'd be their decision if it makes it taxable or not.
Or, I mean, how they organize it, right?
Well, I mean,
they-
if they're doing it not to raise, make income, that's one thing, but yeah.
Right, I mean, you could probably organize that as a not-for-profit or as a for-profit business. That's probably how they would organize, that's their decision of how they want to organize it.
I'm not going, I'm asking that question for information purposes. It's not that I would be against what you're planning. Looks like you've informed all the neighbors and I'm kind of curious.
No, no,
I mean,
it's a
I
fair
totally
question.
think that buildings like this on valuable corner property, if we can make multiple, if you can have multiple uses over it, great. And if the city can balance out some of our issues with property taxes and our levy, because we need more commercial, even better.
I'm happy to provide more on specifically the relationship with Baptist Land Academy if you'd like. That's you.
Come on up. I'm sorry, Mayor.
So the current proposition for it is kind of be like a tenant and a lease situation where obviously they're going to be in there, they're going to be their business, but obviously the church is a non-for-profit business. And so the idea of for being for the community, obviously, to use that space to allow people the opportunity to use it for preschool care, any income, if you will, or revenue that the church gets from that will fund the community, obviously, as a not-for-profit business. As I mentioned currently, right now, I mean, a lot of the functions that happen there, aside from overtime, which some of you may know, is after the home Johnston football games, everyone is invited. Aside from events like that and youth groups, there's not a whole lot of way it functions, and our goal is to change that. And this preschool will be a big part of making all of that happen in the grand scheme of this entire project, this being phase one of it. Thank you.
Any other questions, council? If not, this is a public hearing on this matter. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the council? If not, we will close the public hearing at 9:11. Do we have a motion to approve resolution, or the first reading of ordinance number 1117?
Move approval?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Reddy,
Yes.
Burkhart,
Yes.
Coe,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Motion passed. Moving on to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Burkhart,
Yes.
Coe,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Reddy.
Yes.
Motion passed. Moving on to the non-consent agenda, item 7A, first consideration of an ordinance 1116, amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Johnston, Iowa for the purpose of revising parking regulations and fine amounts. Chief.
Excuse me, good evening. Let me switch to something here real quick, hopefully. Okay, hopefully this is the least exciting thing you guys get to talk about this evening, but parking. We, in the police department, we have occasion to deal with parking complaints, and we've talked about this in the past, that for the most part, parking is one of those things that we try to address with our residents as informally as possible. But we do have to issue citations from time to time. One of the issues that we've faced in the last couple of years as our communities continue to grow is semi-parking in city-owned parking lots. Specifically, the library has been the predominant place where we've had to deal with some of that. So there's been discussion between the police department as well as the Public Works Committee, I believe, on working through how do we address that as our community continues to grow, and what do we do for the future. That was kind of how this whole thing started as far as this ordinance amendment. And then as we got to looking through the parking regulations, there were a couple more cleanup things that we found. So at this point, we're bringing forward what should be hopefully a pretty straightforward set of ordinance revisions. Okay. I thought it was on the screen, but give me just 1 second here. So these are the amendments that we'll be working through with this ordinance. Essentially, there's about 3 or 4 different sections that we're just trying to clean up. As I mentioned, looking at the parking ordinances, one of the things that we discovered is we actually are one of the few cities that do not have a regulation that prohibits parking in fire lanes. It took me 8 years as your police chief to figure that out, but I figured that out. So we're in a position, historically, Crown Point has really been the only marked fire lane that we've had in the city. But as we look to expansion and new growth in the community, it seems like this is something that would be important to include for future regulations. So within the section 6906 that lays out several different prohibited parking, we're adding fire lanes to that. So that top section would be creating a new subsection in 6906 that gives us the authority to regulate fire lanes. Moving down to the next section, when I made my comments earlier as far as the semi-parkings, this last sentence in red, this is the fix for that. So we're clarifying that we're not going to allow semi-parking and all the things that are listed there within our city parking lots. It doesn't prohibit someone from their own private property or business to give permission if they choose to, but this is something we're trying to address. Also in that 6910, with the zoning code ordinances and some of the changes, we are just updating the proper residential numbers as far as the zoning code with that. Then in the bottom section, that just simply is the fine section for our parking. And with that, it stipulates that there's a $50 fine for the fire lane parking, which is standard that you see in most communities. So that is the essence of the ordinance changes for the parking provisions. I will tell you that I'm asking for action for the first reading on this. Moving into the second reading, I would like to bring forward one additional change that's just come up here in discussion within the department in the last week or so. If you look at the section 6910, what we're laying out here is that it's prohibiting parking motorhome, tractor unit, semi-trailer, this word trailer right here. Trailer is a very broad word. And so what we've run into very recently with some calls is some confusion about what is the intention of prohibiting a trailer. As you look at trailers, it could be a job trailer, it could be a mowing trailer, it could be a boat trailer, it could be a U-Haul that somebody's loading for college, those kinds of things. So we've had a couple instances with our officers where they're trying to mitigate these conversations between neighbors about a trailer being parked on the street and whether that is allowable or not. My suggestion for the second reading is that when I bring it back to you, instead of just saying trailer, we add the word unattached in front of trailer. So with that, that gives us an opportunity to prohibit people from dropping a trailer, parking it on the street for an extended period of time. It's not attached to a work truck, say someone has a lawn service or something along those lines. So that would be the addition that I would like to bring forward at the second reading if you're all okay with that. If not, we would just move forward as it is. But it'll help to clarify for our officers from a dispute standpoint of what the interpretation is. We looked at about 6 different cities' parking codes and how they address that. And as you would imagine, there's a wide variety that some get into whether it's attached to a truck or not, how many hours it can be attached, what hours of the day it can be attached, all those kinds of things. That's going to be very difficult for our officers to settle a dispute on or to be able to enforce. So what I'm recommending is that we look at adding the word unattached in front of trailer for this. And then if we continue to have issues, we're probably going to have to come back to the council and probably add a couple paragraphs of a new regulation that would stipulate to something more than that. But I think this embraces what I believe is the intent of the ordinance as far as the prohibition on trailers, that we focus in on the unattached versions of those. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Council, have any questions for the chief?
Mayor, I do. Did you, Councilman?
Go ahead. No, ask.
Chief, do we have a, let me begin with one technical request moving forward.
Sure.
There are 2 images that are attached. They are in a specific format that is less than conducive for some folks who may be viewing those on other types of devices. So before next reading, would you mind trying to render them as a JPEG or something along those lines? With that being said, do we have a provision within this parking where for special events or occasions we can suspend these types of provisions? I'm bringing, for example, Green Days as my example, whether it actually is John Deere tractors that are waiting to be staged to be loaded back up, or National Guard vehicles, or quite frankly, unattached trailers are going to be all of our carnival rides that are sitting in the middle of a parking lot. Now, I don't see or anticipate police going through and ticketing those folks under such event, but how do we handle something like that so that we don't even have to worry about the technicalities?
Sure, and I think that goes back to our general philosophy with parking enforcement, that typically when we're called, absent the large snow event that has been in the news for 4 days that we're gonna get dumped on, and then we issue the citations for a snow violation. But our approach to parking enforcement is reactive to that concern, and then trying to figure out a solution to that concern so that we don't have to issue the violation. So looking at a special event, a Green Days, whatever, a parade, whatever that might be, we're the ones that are gonna be called, we're the ones that have to issue that violation, and our officers aren't going to run around and issue. I think that would be my way that I would enjoy handling that. Something more as far as a specific piece of language that you want, I'm gonna rely on Christine probably to help me craft that if that's your desire.
Well, I guess I'd rather not have to do something along those lines. I certainly like the grace that you provide folks, and maybe we can have a conversation offline. Does the police force ever get asked, or in other words, heavily suggested by neighbors to write the citation as the only way of fixing? In other words, would we ever come upon someone that in essence was going to try to hold us to something beyond what we're trying to do?
Oh, I mean, that, people tell us how to do our jobs pretty frequently.
Yeah, I suspect that's the case.
Can you cite any examples?
Yes. So, yeah, I mean, again, we try to do what's best for the community, and we've had issues using when the new high school opened up as an example, and students parking in areas that were clearly prohibited. First step wasn't just to go out and issue citations. We worked with school administrators, we worked with our school resource officers, we worked with the neighborhood, have discussions. We tried to identify, specific vehicles that were parking there all the time. In most cases, it was a student that had lost their parking privilege for doing something wrong on campus and went out to the city street and now was doing something wrong on the city street. So there certainly comes a point where enforcement is the option because other things aren't working. But again, that's typically not our first step. We're going to try to mitigate it as best we can, unless it's just an absolutely egregious violation, or it's a frequent flyer that we've tried other methodologies and they haven't seemed to get the message through that.
Thank you.
A quick question. First and foremost, thank you for making this happen. We had a lot of people parking up in the city parking lot and the heavy trucks that makes the concrete in the parking lots damaged. The maintenance of it makes it hard, and it just comes back to us to. Thanks for that. The second question is, the first question is, you have $50 fine for making it happen. Is that per day?
Per violation.
Per violation. And you have said that 30 days after that, you have a increase of $5. Now this might be as $50, I can still park for 30 days. My increase is 5 days.
No. So there's other sections within parking provisions. A vehicle has to move every 24 hours. If they don't move within 24 hours, there's another violation that we can issue on top of that. So you've got the means in which to take enforcement actions. If we have a complaint of a vehicle that's parked in one location for 24 hours, we'll go out, we'll investigate it. We'll mark the concrete or something to make certain that we're seeing whether that vehicle's moving or not. We'll run the license plate to make sure it's not stolen or abandoned or things of that nature. With those elements, we'll typically be marking the vehicle the first 24 hours. We come back 24 hours later, we have a bright orange sticker that we put right on the window that lets them know that they're not going to be allowed to park there for another 24 hours or we're going to tow that vehicle. So. Okay. That's the general piece of when vehicles don't move. As far as the enhancement of the $5, Christine, I'm going to look to you to give that explanation, that that's something that's codified within state code that we're required to only charge that. I had suggested that we raise that, but I was told by city legal that that's not an option, so that's why it's still $5.
Yeah, the administrative enforcement of parking citations is very restricted under state law. And so if somebody doesn't pay their parking ticket within 30 days, the city is limited to a $5 sort of surcharge administrative fine on top of that. So we cannot make that higher if we would like to.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Chief, this might be a question as much for Matt as maybe for you. I have observed that we're having problems on that little road that runs behind Walgreens there with semi-trucks being parked there. And in fact, last Saturday, I went by there and there were 3 of them parked there. And I think it's only going to get worse if we prohibit parking in some of our other public parking lots. I'm wondering if the language that's in here, abutting property zone as RRRRR, does that capture those or not? Probably not.
It does not. There's a small sliver. I looked at the map today. There's a small sliver of conservation area that's zoned where that drainage way is, which doesn't capture, because the school that sits next to there is R1, but you have a small sliver of
You
conservation
have the
area.
apartments on the other side, though.
Yeah, those are zoned, they're not zoned R1.
Okay,
I
okay.
believe those are zoned. David, I'll look at you for what that zoning is. It's not an R zoning though. Right. So we'd have to correct that. I can work with David and correct that. Because it was parked there today as well.
Yeah, and like I said, on Saturday, there were 3 of them. The problem that it creates is during school pickup and drop-off time, that's where the parents will back up. And if you're trying to get by that, you can't, not safely. You can't, because the semis are parked there and then the cars have to park out in the middle of that road. And as you know, that road is very, very narrow. So you can't get through. So we need to address that.
So I would support, I was gonna say I would support the unattached trailer amendment at the next reading, but I would also support an amendment to address, if Mayor, if that's what you're suggesting too, is that we amend the zoning areas to include that.
Either
So-
now or sometime soon. because
Sure,
it's becoming an
I can work
increasing
with David
problem.
and Matt to get whatever that right definition of that zoning area is so that it becomes enforceable.
Not only is it a hazard to the traveling public as they're trying to get through there, but the road isn't constructed to hold that kind of parked vehicle.
Correct. That's the other alternative. We could embargo that road so that we wouldn't have semi-traffic on it. That would be another alternative too. That would be a
Thank you.
different ordinance, I believe.
All right, I'll bring that back on the second reading then to make sure both of those, if you're good with that.
Any other questions for the chief?
All right, thank you.
If not, do we have a motion to approve first consideration of ordinance number 1116?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Coe,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Ready, Burkhart.
Yes.
Motion passed. For those that are still in the audience, I'm going to kind of try and roll through these, and if you want to speak to any item, just raise your hand. Item 7B, consider approval of resolution number 24-99, approving the site plan for 5950 Northwest Beaver Drive, PC case 2407.
Yeah, I'll do my best. This is Clayton's. So this was brought on by Mark Bradley. The subject property was originally platted December 17, 2007. No other plats have occurred to that date. It is currently zoned M1 and meets all the sites, is compliant with all the bulk regulations of it. There are no existing trees on the property, so tree preservation is not applicable due to that. It meets all of its open space requirements. It has to have, the subject property is 109,484 square feet in size and is required to have 20% of the total area for open space. It meets that with 33,125, or roughly 30.3%. It is compliant with all of its open space landscaping, its requirement to have 22 trees, 22 shrubs, and it exceeds that with 27 trees and 24 shrubs. The site also includes a parking lot, which has 25% or greater parking spaces. As such, one child tree shall be planted within 10 feet of the parking lot curb. These trees are not in addition. It is compliant with that as well. Street trees, it is as well as it is compliant. Northwest Beaver Drive is designated as an arterial roadway. Thus, there has to be one overstory tree every 50 linear feet of frontage for this site. That equates to about 7 trees. These trees are going to be planted in the public right of way, or within 15 feet. It is in compliance with 17 trees. There are planned to be 15 trees planted. For landscaping, buffers, and screening, the proposed outdoor storage area is required to include fencing as a screening mechanism. Use of chain link fence with slats is permitted, provided the fencing is installed in conjunction with evergreen trees. The only thing to point out, staff recommends that either the plans should increase the quantity of evergreen plantings along the outdoor storage fencing when using with slats, such that 2 overstory trees and 4 understory evergreens are utilized for each of the 100 linear feet. There's going to be one site. The site will have one vehicle entrance off of Northwest Beaver Drive. It'll be a shared access drive with a lot to the south. A new private shared driveway easement remains to be filed. The final release. This easement was approved to be vacated with approval of the southern parcel site plan, but has yet to be filed. So that's pending. There is an existing sidewalk along Northwest Beaver Drive, which would be maintained. Pedestrian connection to the front of the building would be provided near the center of that. Sanitary sewer and water connections will be off of Northwest Beaver Drive, and then a storm sewer would be private on the site and will drain to the detention basin on the western edge of the site as well. For architecture, requires at least 25% of the east facade which faces Northwest Beaver Drive to be composed of Class A or Class B materials, and it does meet those requirements as well. Public notice was given to all property owners within 250 feet plus width of right-of-way. And I can answer any additional questions, if there's any questions. Or
Council, any questions for Jake?
The only question I have is related to, I'm looking at page 8 of the staff report, and it talks about possible TIF incentives.
Yes.
And so, as I understand it, and I just want to make it kind of clear that the site plan kind of meets minimum design standards, and I want to kind of have the minutes reflect that if the staff, if there's going to be a development agreement coming back for, which would provide some sort of TIF incentives, that development agreement would have likely would have higher architectural standards than what we're approving tonight. And so then it authorize the staff to approve administratively an update to the site plan. It wouldn't have to come all the way back to council. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, one, if we do a TIF agreement, I would like to see higher architectural standards. That's why we do TIF, right, is to get a little bit nicer building, but also at the same time not make that cumbersome by requiring it to come all the way back to the council to review an updated or an amended site plan. So I just want to have the minutes reflect that discussion, and it appears that the developer is agreeable to that approach. So just want to make sure that that's kind of understood. So.
Mayor, I have a question. Jacob, can you tell me what material the retaining wall on the north side of the site is being made of? I can't find a detail.
It is here somewhere.
Perhaps it's not in the pages that we have. It- A metal retaining wall? Yes. I'm trying to find out if it is stone, timber, concrete block. But this is the retaining wall that's on the north property line between you and the Chad Ireland property? I'm on the right page.
Okay, Jacob, go to the staff report and go to page 12, because that shows 100 linear foot of retaining wall, right?
Yeah.
So right now, and maybe Cindy, instead of having, okay, Jacob, can you pull up the,
Oh, you want it on the big one?
yeah, the
Yeah.
city council staff report, if you pull that up, and then go to page 12, right there. And maybe zoom in a little bit. Good, now you gotta scroll down just a little bit. Scroll down.
Go to the north
No, up
property
a
line.
little bit, up, right there, stop.
What happens, Clayton's not here.
You're good, you're absolutely, trust me, we'll get Clayton back next time, but, so that's the retaining wall that Councilmember Martin.
That's 100% fine. An engineered retaining wall made out of concrete blocks. I was hoping you were going to say it wasn't going to be boulders or timber, so thank you.
Any other questions, council? Anybody else from the audience want to speak? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve resolution number 24-99?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, further discussion. Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Evans?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Ready?
Yes.
Burkhart?
Yes.
Coe?
Yes.
Motion passed. Item 7C, consider approval of the second reading of ordinance number 1115, amending section 181.04, tree protection and conservation of the Johnston zoning code, PZ case 24-04.
There have been no changes from the previous reading and no additional public comment. Staff would not be concerned if the council wanted to waive third reading.
Do we have a motion to, does council have any questions for David? Do we have a motion to approve second reading of ordinance number 1115?
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second, further discussion?
Mayor, would it be appropriate at this time to, do we wait till okay, never mind, I take it back. We're
Cindy,
all
vote.
just so excited about getting through this.
We just like trees.
We're almost as excited
Go
as Jacob
faster.
is for this meeting to be over.
We have a
This whole meeting's
motion
about
and a
trees,
second.
so
Cindy,
it's-
vote please.
Councilmember Martin?
Yes.
Ready?
Yes.
Burkhart?
Yes.
Coe?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead and waive the third reading and adopt and publish the ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Ready?
Yes.
Burkhart?
Yes.
Coe?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Motion passed. Item 7D, consider approval of resolution number 24-102, approving the site plan for Spring Hill Suites Hotel at 5276 Pitch Parkway, BZ case 24-11.
Okay, again, we blame Clayton for this. This was brought on by all right, let me get there, by, by the Andrew Christensen Living Trust. It is the comp plan that currently identifies the subject property as commercial and parks and open space for the future. It is, the subject property is currently zoned C3 Regional and Commercial Zoning District. As proposed, the site is in compliance with all the bulk regulations of the zoning district. Again, there are no existing trees on the subject property. It meets all open space landscaping with requirement of 22 trees and 22 shrubs, and it meets that with 27 trees and 24 shrubs. It is also, the site is in compliance with proper placement of plantings for parking lot landscaping as well. Pitch Parkway is not designated as a collector or arterial street, therefore street trees are not required on it. There are no landscape buffers required for the property. And then 5% of all the parking spaces are needed to be EV ready. For this site, that equates to 9 EV spots. There's going to be 1 spot intended to have an EV charger installed within the initial development of that. 1 bicycle rack with the capacity to support 2 bicycles is required. It is in compliance with that with 4 bicycle racks proposed with the capacity of 8 bikes. Sanitary sewer will connect to public sanitary sewer along Pitch Parkway as well as water. And then storm sewer, all storm sewer internal to this site will be private. The storm sewer will outlet into an overland flowage swale along the south side of future Centurion Park. The proposed building will be sprinklered with a knockbox and adequate fire hydrant. The drainage will utilize underground detention basins to satisfy the post-construction stormwater. The subject property is not located within any FEMA designated floodway, but it is located within the FEMA designated zone AE, commonly referred to as the 100-year floodplain. Again, Chapter 185 of the Johnston zoning code requires 50% of each facade be composed of Class A building materials, no more than 50% of Class B, and no more than 15% be composed of Class C materials. As it stands, as proposed, the building's architecture is in compliance with the requirements for C3 zoning as well. Our consulting engineer issued review comments in a letter dated April 1st, and staff recommends a condition for approval to revise the site plan with all comments from the April 1st, 2024 review letter. If there's any questions, concerns, happy to try to answer those.
Council, any questions for Jake?
Mayor, I have one. Jacob, this may require a longer explanation than what we have prepared tonight. How do we know, I'm reading through the electric vehicle charging parking provisions. How do we move past 1 charger? I see that only 1 actual charger is indicated within these 9 spots. I mean, does the city have recourse to be able to come back later and say, now's the time to add those further chargers? Are they left only at the discretion of the property owner? How does that play out?
If I remember correctly, all 9 have to be, and David, you might be able to answer this, all 9 have to have conduit ready for that, so those chargers can be put in. I believe in this situation, there's gonna be 1 with a charger already put in. So then the other 8 spots will already have the conduit already put into that. I don't know if that answered your question or not.
Yeah, to expand on that a little bit, the ordinance requirement is for a certain number, after a certain size parking lot, there's a certain number required, and additional are required to be ready, which means conduit in, space in the electric panel, transformer capacity, those kind of things. Those are all upfront costs that are much cheaper to plan for upfront and then have to go back and retrofit. And so that would be reviewed at the time of the building permit process, or make sure that those things are done. And then the idea being, in the future, we don't necessarily have the ability to go tell them they have to install them, but it would lower the barrier for them to install additional ones if the demand is there.
Okay. Thank you, both.
Okay, I have a question. Landscape plan, can you go to the staff report, page Looks like it's page 19. It's sheet C 600. Now, the last commercial building we just saw had a lot of trees on it for the size of this building. This doesn't. Way I'm reading it here, basically it's said in the staff report that it's 18 trees are required based on the amount of parking, and then another 20-some trees based on the open space requirements. They have a total of 28 trees on this site plan,
So those,
and you can't count them, you can't accumulate them. You're supposed to count them for both things, is that correct?
yes, so
And the last property didn't have to do that, or
Yep.
didn't get a chance to do that?
they did. It was part of the parking. So the parking lot plantings are included with the overall of it.
Open space.
It's not combined.
So I understand this is a Marriott hotel. I think the landscaping is underwhelming to a big extent, considering the amount of attention this area is going to get and that it is a Marriott-style hotel. Just my opinion, it's lacking. It's a comment I'm making. I'm done.
Any other questions or comments?
Mayor, can I direct a question to Councilmember Martin?
Sure.
Councilmember Martin, may I direct a
Let's
question
go.
to you?
Yield.
The question I have is, I mean, what would be something that would be more suitable or acceptable? I mean,
Double the amount, add another 20 trees on this site. That's what I think would be acceptable for a Marriott hotel in what is something we've been planning for the last 6 years as a very beautiful new site with a beautiful new hotel.
I know that you have no professional interest in this property. In other words, from that standpoint,
True.
can 28 more trees go on this property?
I take it back. I'm being facetious.
Okay.
18 more trees. I'd rather not have them double up, but I think they could put 18 more trees on here, yeah.
Jake, what are they required to have?
They're required to have 22 trees and 22 shrubs, and they're exceeding that with 27 trees and 24 shrubs.
Well, I think the developer has heard your comment. He's coming up behind you, Jake.
Justin Strom, 2727 Southwest Snyder Boulevard, Site Civil Engineers. We do have an owner rep. I will say that we are just meeting the minimum required by the city is what we'll show on here. There's nothing to say that they might go above and beyond and install additional things, but per the code, we're just trying to meet exactly what the city's requirements are. I will say that we have worked with Ignite in the city on the north and the west side, and we are actually working very closely with Lithia on the south side. So if you've been out to that car dealership, outside of their parking lot, it's very overgrown, falls off. There's a big drainage ditch. We're actually going to grade from our property all the way to their back of curb. We're going to regrade it, reseed it, make it look really nice. The whole development from Lithia through the hotel through Ignite is going to look all cohesive. So we are trying to clean it up and make it nice and not necessarily just do the bare minimum. We are going out in a few spots to improve areas that we don't actually need to per code. So we are trying to do other things outside of expanding and doubling all of our landscaping.
You would have my gratitude and my vote if you would promise to give us, let's say, 12 more trees.
I don't know if I have the authority to make those promises.
No, okay.
I would say that I know we were recently at a ribbon cutting where the owner of this property highlighted the fact that some of those improvements are trying to fix up some of the space between that and Lithia, so it is top of mind for the developer. I think certainly encouraging them to add more trees I think it's a message that's been delivered and heard, so. But anyway.
Any other questions or comments, council? Do we have a motion to approve resolution number 24-102?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Cindy, any further discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Reddy?
Yes.
Burkhart?
Yes.
Pope?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Martin?
No.
Motion passed. Item 7E, consider approval of claims in the amount of $2,485,776.
Move
And
approval.
7 cents.
Second.
Move approval on the 7 cents.
The other 2.4 million you got to find.
Send out.
Somebody else. I'm sorry.
We have a motion and a
Yes.
second. Further discussion. Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Burkhart?
Yes.
Cope?
Yes.
Evans?
Yep.
Martin?
Yeah.
Reddy?
Motion passed. City administrator comments.
I just want to take a moment to thank staff in particular, Sarah in particular, for their hard, heavy lift work on the budget. It did take a lot. I know they worked hard to provide a balanced budget that also met kind of your expectations. And I appreciate the feedback. We had a lot of discussions. And so I just thank everyone for the budget process this year. I appreciate it.
City council comments. Oops.
Sorry,
we
there's a
have
couple
city
staff comments.
Sorry. Going back to the conversation regarding the budget, first of all, I appreciate all the comments in support of the police department. To that vein, if you have questions that come through your constituents, the annual report for 2023 was submitted tonight through the report section. If you haven't had the opportunity to look at that, I'd encourage you to do so or direct folks to that. I hope that it provides value as far as the return on investment, or at least some kind of perspective of what our police department accomplished in 2023. I'm very proud of the staff and the work that was put in, and also special thanks to Janet. She did an amazing job putting it together. So with that, I'm obviously not going to work through 25 pages with you, but just wanted to draw it to your attention. Thank you.
Good call.
One other quick item, I'd encourage Councilman Evans to attend the MPO meeting on Thursday. The MPO funding subcommittee, subject to approval by the full MPO, is a recommended award of $1.9 million to the city for the Towner Drive interchange project on 141. So
Be there, Jim.
I'll be there.
And that's in addition to the 500,000 they granted us last year, so big increase this year. So
If you can't make it, Jim, I think I'm your alternate, so just.
But will you vote the same way?
Well, I
That's
do,
what
I think I've got a conflict at that same time, so my ability to be there may be a little, anyway.
Any other staff comments? City council comments. Councilman Evans.
I don't have anything.
Ready.
I don't have anything for now.
Pope.
I do appreciate all the great work that staff did, but I also think, I want to thank all of us at the dais as well for working together collaboratively on that. That was a hard budget, and it was not an easy vote for any of us, but we did it together. And I think that's really important. A lot of cities out there that don't do it. And I just want to note that that's, I think, something that makes this group really special, that we're willing to make tough decisions together. And so I just wanted to note that.
I echo those sentiments, but my only announcement tonight is I'm grateful for all the public as well as the city staff and anyone else who participated and contributed in the interview process for our library director last Thursday. The library board of trustees did decide on a candidate and extended an offer, and now we're in the process of working through the hiring steps with that, with the anticipated, I guess, approval of that hire May 2nd. So anyway, more to come, but at the same point, we're very excited to be able to have a director, hopefully within the next couple of weeks, or at least months will start.
I appreciate all the work that went into the budget too, and I apologize, Mayor, for my flippant comments. I'm just tired. Thanks.
Not a problem. Well, I appreciate all the work as well from my staff, Sarah, probably felt like a bath
Baptism by
by fire, or whatever the phrase is. But you obviously showed us what you're capable of doing, and really appreciate your good work on that. And the council. I mean, as Councilman Culp has already said, you know, none of us can do this alone. This takes an effort on the part of all of us, and I think we do work as well as a council as any other council in the area. So I appreciate all of your good work on that. I do want to share some information. If you're not aware, the Iowa National Guard will be hosting the Regional Best Warrior Competition. You remember when CSM, what is that?
Command Sergeant Major.
Command Sergeant Major Strasser was here to talk to us about, you know, their hope that they could pull this off. Well, they've done that. They've worked very closely with, I think, with the fire department, as well as with the police department, as well as with other public works and others to pull this together. They will be hosting that competition May 1st through the 5th. It's the first time they've done it in 7 years. It will be conducted at Camp Dodge, but also at other areas throughout our community. They will have a town party on May 5th, which is a Sunday, from 11 o'clock to 2 o'clock. The entire community is invited to attend that town party. The 34th Army Band will be playing. There'll be games, food trucks, videos of the competition, and there'll be an award ceremony as well. So get that on your calendar. It should be a great time. I think the yard will be as full as it's ever been, with not only soldiers, but also members of our community who turn out to support their activities that day. So should be a great time. Is there anything else to come before the council this evening? If not, we are adjourned.
It's going to be at the yard.